Sunk, flush, rub, poke, backspacing, what does it all mean? Don't worry guys, we're gonna break it all down for you on this episode of The Haul Offset Edition. What's up guys, Justin with AmericanTrucks.com and welcome to our video about all things offset. What is it, how it's going to affect the fitment of your wheels, and lastly, what will be the best bet for you and your rig. We plan on covering all of that in this video, in addition to showing you a few different offset examples on our 2018 here. So with all that said, what do you say we get rolling? Now in a nutshell, offset is defined as the distance of the wheel's mounting surface in relation to the center line of your wheel measured in millimeters. Now an easy way to think about this guys is that if the wheel's mounting surface is located in the direct center or middle of the barrel of the wheel, that would essentially have a zero or neutral offset. Now, if that mounting surface falls behind the center line, a little bit closer to the inside lip of the wheel, then you have what is called negative offset. Think about those super wide wheels with a big old lip. This is usually achieved by placing that mounting surface deep within the barrel of the wheel to give you that nice big aggressive lip. Now these wheels typically have a high negative offset and are responsible for that poke that we'll demonstrate in a little bit. On the flip side, if the wheel's mounting surface falls on the other side of that center line, a little bit closer to the outer lip of the wheel, that's referred to as positive offset. And that's what you're gonna find with most stock wheels, including the F-150, which have an offset of plus 44. Now that's 44 millimeters from the wheel center line. Now, usually guys, the higher the offset, the more the wheel itself will be pulled into the wheel well, which doesn't always give you the most aggressive look, but will usually result in the best fitment because the more you deviate from that stock offset, the better chance you have of introducing some rubbing. Now, you can't talk about offset without mentioning backspacing, and it is very important to point out their relation, but also their differences. Backspacing is defined as the measurement from the wheel's mounting surface to the inner edge or lip of the wheel itself. Essentially, the amount of wheel in inches that will extend inward towards your suspension. Now this is different from offset, but there is also some relation between the two. Case in point, the more positive offset you have, the more backspacing a wheel will have given the same width, and vice versa. So that's why you don't really see many 20 by 12 wheels with a really high positive offset, because that wheel would no doubt interfere with your truck suspension components. Now, even though backspacing is very important to be aware of, most of you guys won't have to worry about that when shopping for wheels here on our site for your specific gen. Why? Well, because most, if not all, wheel manufacturers are going to offer wheels with the correct amount of backspacing to fit 99% of setups for your particular year range. Instead, the big variables you guys will need to be concerned with are diameter, width, and of course offset, which will determine just how much poke you are looking to achieve with your stance. What is poke? Well, as the name implies, it's the amount the wheel and tire will poke or stick out of your fender when installed. Now, if you guys were paying attention earlier, you already know that the aggressive negative offset wheels will typically give you a little or a lot more poke depending on your offset, whereas a stock or similar positive offset will put the wheel typically in the wheel well itself. And then finally guys, you're gonna be offset somewhere in the middle there to achieve what is called more of a flush fitment. But what does it all mean when it comes time to seeing them on your truck? Well, we just so happen to have 3 offset examples here today to show you guys on our leveled 2018 F-150. A factory offset of plus 44, a plus 12 offset, which will achieve more of that flush fitment, and then finally a negative 24 offset, which will demonstrate some poke. Now the purpose of this is to not only show you how offset affects your stance, but also the challenges, if any, with fitment when it comes down to rubbing. So with all that said, what do you say we check it out? All right guys, I do want to remind you again up front that this truck is leveled 2.5 inches thanks to a Supreme Suspensions kit. And the 3 different wheel and tire combos we plan on showing you here today will have a very similar wheel and tire size, but that big variable again will be offset. We really want to show you how that affects the wheel fitment on your particular truck. So let's get into it. First up guys, we have the factory STX wheel here on the F-150, 20 by 8.5 for the wheel with a plus 44 offset. Now that wheel is wrapped in the Mickey Thompson Baja ATZ 285/55 R20, which essentially works out to be a 32 and change by 11. Now again, that plus 44 offset, well, it looks like a factory offset, right? The wheel and tire is pushed nicely into that wheel well, no flushness, no poke, anything like that. And because of that, there's really no rubbing to be aware of with this combination, thanks to that small level in addition to the factory offset. Now, throwing a larger tire on your factory wheel is a very popular move for a lot of truck owners out there for a number of reasons. First and foremost, going to be the most cost-effective way to do something like this, right? Because you don't have to buy a completely new set of wheels on top of your tires, tossing in TPMS sensors, lug nuts, and everything else. It's going to be the most budget-friendly way to get a more aggressive tire on your rig. Secondly, because of that factory offset, rubbing is essentially a non-issue as long as you don't overshoot your tire size. And what I mean by that is, guys, don't expect to throw on a 37 with your stock wheel in a 2-inch level because, well, that simply will just not work. Now, because this thing is rocking the factory offset and because the wheel and tire is completely in the wheel well as Ford intended, you're gonna have full articulation or movement of your wheel and tire here. And better off, you're not gonna be slinging mud, dirt, rocks, whatever down the side of your truck like you would with a more aggressive offset that is left uncovered. The only drawback to something like this with the factory offset is that it's not exactly known for its aggressive stance because of the lack of flush or poke here. But if you're okay with that and you don't mind the factory offset and the look that goes along with that, you're gonna save yourself a lot of money, you're gonna save yourself some trimming. But what do you say we get a little bit more aggressive with offset and show you how to achieve a more flush appearance? Now, when we're talking flush fitment, what we really mean is the orientation of the wheel and tire in regards to the fender here. It's nice and flush, as you can see. The wheel's not poking out too much and it's not sunken in like it was with the factory offset. How did we achieve that? Well, this particular setup is gonna be the Black Rhino York wheel 20x9 with that same Mickey Thompson 285/55 R20 that we had on our last setup. The big difference here, guys, you guessed it, offset. This particular wheel features a plus 12 offset, which essentially is going to stick the wheel out about 1.25 inches further than that plus 44 offset of our stock wheel. What does that make for? Well, that flush fitment that we just talked about and a very popular look for a lot of truck owners out there. Why? Well, again, you're getting a slightly more aggressive stance over the factory offset, but at the same time, by not poking the wheel out of the wheel well, you're not gonna be flinging a bunch of stuff, and you still really don't have to worry about any trimming or rubbing with this plus 12 offset. Had full articulation of the wheel and tire, lock to lock, no rubbing whatsoever. You could even probably get a little bit closer to a 0 or neutral offset if you wanted, but the plus 12 really is a great example of how to achieve a flush fitment here with your F-150. But now, what do you say we dive into those negative offsets and show you what a little bit of poke looks like? All right, guys, last but not least, our third and final example with our offset video. You wanted to see a little bit of poke? Well, here you go. This is the fuel crank wheel, 20x10, but more importantly, a negative 24 offset. So let's talk about them a little bit more. As you can see, guys, again, 20x10 is the size of the fuel crank wheel. And because we did go a little bit wider with this wheel to achieve a negative 24 offset, we also had to put a wider tire on this thing to accommodate that wider wheel. So now in its place, a 305/55 R20, still working with that same Baja ATZ from Mickey Thompson. Now, as you can see, guys, negative 24 offset is gonna poke the wheel out almost 2 inches from your fender here, which again, makes for a very aggressive look, don't get me wrong, but at this point, fitment certainly becomes an issue. Because if you think about it, you're moving the pivot point so far out of the wheel well, so now the wheel is gonna move and at that point interfere with things it didn't before. Front and rear crash bars are all but a given at this ride height, in addition to some of your plastic as well. If you want to achieve this much stance or this much poke, you must be prepared to modify your truck accordingly. Now, in addition to that, guys, because you are sticking this much of your tire from the wheel well, you're gonna sling all kinds of junk down the side of your truck. We're talking dirt, mud, rocks, snow, whatever, unless you go with some sort of aftermarket fender flare to cover them up. Not everybody's a big fan of flares on these trucks. Some people prefer the look of a little bit of poke, myself included, but some local laws will even mandate you cover your tires at all times. or you might even catch a fine. So now that you know a little bit more about this setup, if you want that aggressive look, negative offset is the only way to roll. Well guys, we hope you enjoyed this installment of All Things Offset. We hope it clarified the subject a little bit more for you guys at home. And again, if you have any questions or if you want to comment and let us know what kind of offset you prefer on your own rig, feel free to drop us a comment below. But in the meantime, I'm Justin. Thanks for watching. And remember, for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.